Let's be completely honest for a second. There are few things that cause as much instant, heart-dropping panic as looking down into the toilet bowl and seeing stool that is pencil-thin, flat like a ribbon, or incredibly narrow. Your mind immediately goes to the worst-case scenario. You probably did a quick Google search, and within 3 seconds the internet convinced you that you have colon cancer. It is a terrifying moment. But before you spiral into absolute panic, I need you to take a deep breath. Yes, thin or narrow stool is a symptom that you need to take seriously, and it is something you absolutely shouldn't ignore. However, the question you are asking yourself right now is, does this always mean cancer? The answer is no, not even close. While we are going to talk about the serious reasons why your stool might look like a narrow ribbon, there are several incredibly common, completely benign, and easily manageable reasons why this happens. Today, we are going to break down exactly what is going on inside your body. We will cover the worst-case scenario so you know exactly what to look out for, the dietary mistakes that ruin your stool volume, and the hidden mechanical and muscle issues that are physically squishing your stool on its way out. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room first. The reason you are likely watching this video is the fear of colon or intestinal cancer. And it is true, thin or ribbon-like stools can be a major red flag for this disease. To understand why this happens, you have to picture the anatomy of your large intestine. Think of your colon as a flexible, hollow tube, much like a garden hose. Normally, stool forms and passes through this wide-open tube, resulting in a normal, thick, well-shaped bowel movement. However, when a tumor begins to grow inside the colon, it doesn't just stay flat against the wall. It grows inward, protruding into the empty space of the intestinal tube. As this mass gets larger, it creates a blockade, significantly narrowing the passageway. Now, because stool in the upper parts of the colon is still relatively soft and malleable, your digestive system has to force it through this newly narrowed opening. The tumor acts exactly like a mold, physically squeezing and compressing the stool as it passes by. By the time it reaches the toilet bowl, it has been shaped into a thin, pencil-like string or a flattened ribbon. This is not a scenario to take lightly. Global health statistics are showing a concerning, steady rise in colon cancer rates over the last decade, and it is currently one of the most common cancers diagnosed in both men and women. We are seeing it climb the ranks rapidly, and it is no longer a disease that only affects the elderly. In the coming years, it is projected to become the leading cause of cancer-related issues for a massive portion of the population. This brings us to the absolute most important tool you have for your health, the colonoscopy. A colonoscopy is a preventative and diagnostic procedure that allows a direct look inside that intestinal tube to see exactly what might be blocking the path. You might have heard about the standard medical screening guidelines. Generally, it is recommended to get your first routine colonoscopy at the age of 45, or starting at age 40 if you have a direct family history of colon cancer. But here is the critical detail you need to take away from this section. Those age guidelines are only for people who feel perfectly fine and have absolutely zero symptoms. If you are actually experiencing symptoms, those age rules go completely out the window. It does not matter if you are 30, 25, or 60. If you are consistently seeing pencil-thin stools, if you have noticed a sudden and lasting change in your bowel habits like new chronic diarrhea or sudden severe constipation, if your stomach is constantly distended and painful, or if a routine blood test shows you have unexplained anemia, you need a colonoscopy. Period. When symptoms are present, a visual evaluation is non-negotiable to either catch a problem early or, ideally, rule cancer out entirely. Now that we have addressed the most serious possibility, let's completely shift gears and talk about something far more common and entirely within your control, your diet. Believe it or not, the most frequent reason people experience narrow or thin stools has absolutely nothing to do with a tumor or a disease. it comes down to basic digestive physics involving stool volume, fiber, and hydration. To understand this, you need to know how healthy stool is actually formed. For your intestine to produce a thick, well-shaped bowel movement, the stool itself needs to have mass. It needs bulk. When stool has enough bulk, it naturally presses against the walls of the colon as it moves through, keeping the intestinal passageway wide and active. But what gives your stool that necessary bulk? The answer is dietary fiber combined with plenty of water. If your daily diet consists mostly of processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and very few plant-based foods, you are likely severely deficient in fiber. When you don't consume enough fiber, your stool essentially lacks the building blocks it needs to form a solid, substantial mass. Without that bulk, the stool remains incredibly low in volume. Because it is so small and lacks structure, the normal rhythmic squeezing motions of your intestines simply flatten it out. The result is a skinny, frail, or ribbon-like stool that looks alarming in the toilet bowl, but is actually just a sign of a poor diet. The fix here relies on introducing both soluble and insoluble fibers into your daily routine. Soluble fiber dissolves in water to form a gel-like substance, which softens the stool, while insoluble fiber acts like a broom, adding physical bulk and helping food move through your digestive system. You can easily get these necessary fibers from sources like oats, chia seeds, flaxseed, psyllium husks, and a wide variety of fresh vegetables. However, there is a catch. Eating all the fiber in the world will not help if you are not drinking enough water. Fiber acts like a sponge in your digestive tract. If you eat a lot of fiber but are dehydrated, that sponge dries up, leading to hard, narrow stools or even severe constipation. But when you combine a high-fiber diet with proper daily hydration, that sponge expands, creating the thick, healthy, well-formed stool that proves your digestive system is working exactly the way it should. But let's be totally honest. What if you struggle to eat enough fiber, or no matter what you try, you still feel constantly bloated, sluggish, and backed up? It sounds completely crazy, but thousands of people are actually emptying their bowels twice as fast by doing the exact opposite, eating no fibers, and instead using a strange 8,000-year-old underwater gut superfood. By adding just one pinch of this before a meal, they are able to soothe their gut, restart their digestion, and flush out up to 10 pounds of toxic poop that's been clogging their intestines, all without restrictive diets, expensive probiotics, or medications. If you want to finally fix your digestion fast, point your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen right now to watch a short presentation that explains exactly how this works. I've also pinned a direct link at the very top of the comments below so you can click it right after this video. Now let's move on to the third cause of thin stools, which involves an internal structural issue that is extremely common as we get older, but is completely unrelated to cancer. We need to talk about diverticular disease, specifically a condition involving what we call hypertonic diverticular disease. To understand this, you first need to know what diverticula actually are. Imagine the smooth muscular wall of your large intestine. Over time, due to pressure inside the colon, small bulging pouches or pockets can form in the lining of the digestive tract. These little pockets are called diverticula. While these pouches can theoretically form anywhere in your digestive system, they predominantly show up on the left side of your large intestine. Specifically, they tend to cluster in areas known as the descending colon and the sigmoid colon, which is the section right before the rectum. Having these pockets is actually very common, and many people have them without ever realizing it. But the presence of these pockets isn't what directly causes your stool to become thin. Instead, it is how the muscular wall of your intestine reacts to the presence of these pockets, or the pressure that caused them in the first place, that changes the shape of your bowel movements. This brings us to the concept of hypertonia. In medical terms, hypertonia refers to an abnormal increase in muscle tension and a reduced ability of a muscle to stretch. Your colon is lined with layers of muscle that contract and relax to move waste through your body. In people with hypertonic diverticular disease, the muscles in the colon wall, particularly on that left side where the pouches are located, begin to spasm. Over time, this chronic spasming and continuous tension actually causes the muscular wall of the intestine to physically thicken and become rigid. Now think back to the garden hose analogy we used earlier. If the muscular wall of the intestine is thickening and constantly contracting due to hypertonia, the inside diameter of that tube shrinks. The passageway becomes significantly narrower. Because this happens on the left side of the colon, right before the stool is ready to leave the body, the stool is already relatively solid. As this solid stool is pushed through this narrowed, spasming, and thickened section of the intestine, it gets squished. The thickened intestinal wall acts as a tight mold, squeezing the stool down into a flat, ribbon-like shape just before it reaches the exit. So, while the mechanical result looks very similar to what a blockage might do, it is actually just an overactive, thickened muscle wall doing the squeezing. Finally, we arrive at the fourth common cause, and for this one, we need to look at the very end of your digestive tract, the exit door. Medically, this exit door is controlled by a ring of muscle called the anal sphincter, and the condition that causes narrow stools at this specific location is known as anal sphincter hypertonia. Just like the hypertonia we discussed in the colon wall, hypertonia here means that the muscle has too much tone, too much tension, and is excessively tight. Normally, when you are having a bowel movement, the anal sphincter completely relaxes and opens wide, allowing a well-formed, bulky stool to pass through easily and intact. But when a person has sphincter hypertonia, this muscle is trapped in a state of severe chronic contraction. It simply refuses to fully relax and open. Because the exit door is only opening a fraction of what it should, a normal-sized stool cannot pass through without being physically altered. The tight sphincter acts exactly like a rigid mold. As your body pushes the waste out, it forces the stool through this severely constricted opening. Your stool might travel down your entire digestive tract perfectly healthy and thick, but at the very last second, it is squeezed into a thin, pencil-like string exactly as it leaves the body. So why does this exit muscle become so tight? There are generally two reasons. The first is congenital, meaning some people are simply born with a naturally tight, thicker anal sphincter. It is just a matter of their individual genetics. They may have experienced narrow stools for years, assuming it was completely normal for them because their exit muscle has always been naturally hypercontracted. The second reason is acquired, meaning it develops later in life, usually as a result of unhealed localized trauma. The most frequent culprit here is a chronic anal fissure. An anal fissure is a small, highly painful tear in the delicate skin of the anal canal, often caused by a bad bout of hard constipation. When you have a painful tear in that area, your body's natural defense mechanism is to guard against the pain. It does this by involuntarily clenching the sphincter muscle tightly shut to prevent the tear from stretching. If that fissure goes untreated and becomes a chronic wound, that involuntary clenching becomes permanent. The muscle remains locked in a protective spasm, permanently narrowing the exit and consistently flattening your stool into ribbons. To wrap this all up, if you look in the toilet and see thin, pencil-like or ribbon-shaped stool, remember that you don't need to instantly panic, but you do need to act. We've established that this symptom can be caused by a chronically tight exit muscle, a diet severely lacking in fiber and water, the thickened intestinal walls of diverticular disease, or yes, a tumor narrowing your colon. The most important takeaway here is that it is absolutely impossible for you, or even a doctor, to know which of these four things is causing your thin stool just by looking at the toilet bowl. Because the symptom is identical across all these conditions, guessing is not an option. Seeing a medical professional for a physical evaluation and getting a colonoscopy to look inside that intestinal tube is non-negotiable to protect your long-term health. If this video helped you understand your body a little bit better today, or gave you some peace of mind, please hit the like button so this information can reach more people who might be worrying right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more straightforward science-based health content. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.